You have heard the phrase 1,000 times from your parents. You have heard it from your coworkers. You have heard it from every real estate agent on the internet. Renting is just throwing money away. You are paying the mortgage of someone else. You have nothing to show for it at the end of the month. It is the ultimate financial sin. If you are renting, you are failing at adulthood. You are stuck at the kid table of wealth building, while the real adults are out there building equity. So you sit there and you feel guilty. Every single time you send that rent payment, you feel a little pit in your stomach. You open up your banking app, and you look at your savings account, and you wonder how many more years of skipping vacations it will take to finally save up $80,000 for a down payment on a house that you do not even really like. A house with ugly carpet and a weird smell that sits 45 minutes away from your friends and the restaurants you actually enjoy. But you are told it is a sacrifice you have to make, because owning a home is the American dream, and renting is a trap. But what if I told you that the exact opposite is true right now? What if the people telling you that renting is a waste of money are trapped in a financial echo chamber from 1998? What if I showed you the exact math proving that the people desperately stretching their budgets to buy a house today are actually destroying their wealth while the smart renters are quietly building millions? My name is Eddie, and today we are going to do something that is going to make a lot of traditional financial advisors very angry. We are going to look at the real math behind the rent versus buy debate. We are going to strip away the emotion and the societal pressure, and we are going to look at the cold, hard numbers. Hit subscribe if you are tired of generic financial advice and want to understand how the system actually works. Let us get into it. The entire argument against renting rests on one specific idea. That idea is unrecoverable costs. The theory is very simple. When you pay $2,000 in rent, that money is gone forever. It is unrecoverable. Therefore, it is a complete waste. But when you pay $3,000 for a mortgage, you are building equity. You are putting money into a forced savings account that you can access later when you sell the house. This sounds incredibly logical. It is simple to understand. It fits perfectly on a bumper sticker. And it is completely fundamentally wrong because it conveniently ignores the fact that homeownership comes with a massive mountain of unrecoverable costs. Costs that do not build equity. Costs that disappear into the ether, just like rent. And in many markets today, the unrecoverable costs of owning a home are actually significantly higher than the total cost of renting. You just do not notice it because the real estate industry has done a brilliant job of hiding the true cost of homeownership behind the magical word of equity. Let us look at what you are actually paying for when you buy a house. Let us take a standard $500,000 house. You did the responsible thing and saved up a 20% down payment, which is $100,000. So you take out a mortgage for $400,000 at a 6.5% interest rate. Your monthly payment for principal and interest is about $28. When you make that first payment, you probably feel amazing. You are building equity. You are a homeowner. But look closer at that very first payment. Out of that $28, a staggering $21.66 goes straight to the bank as interest. Only $362 actually goes toward paying down your loan balance. That $21.66 is unrecoverable. It is gone forever. It is rent you are paying to the bank for the privilege of borrowing their money, and it stays that way for a very long time. Let us look deeper into how the mortgage actually works, because this is where the bank performs its greatest magic trick. It is called the amortization schedule. Most people think that if they have a 30-year loan, they pay off about 3% of the house every year. That is not how it works at all. The bank front loads the interest to protect themselves. For the first 10 years of a 30-year mortgage, the vast majority of your payment is just pure interest. On our $500,000 house example, by year 5, you have paid over $120,000 in interest, and you have barely chipped away at the principal. Why does this matter? It matters because the average American does not stay in their house for 30 years. The average American moves every 7 to 10 years. This is the ultimate trap. You buy a house. You pay mostly interest for 7 years. You pay thousands in property taxes. You pay thousands in maintenance. Then you get a new job, or you have another kid and you need to move. So you sell the house. You pay the massive 6% realtor commission. You pay the closing costs. And when the dust settles, you realize you barely made any profit at all. Your equity was eaten alive by the transaction costs. And you never made it to the later years of the mortgage, where you actually pay down the principal. You essentially just rented the house from the bank, but you took on all the liability of an owner. The bank loves this cycle. They want you to move every 7 years. They want you to take out a new 30-year loan so they can start the amortization schedule all over again and keep collecting that front-loaded interest. It is a brilliant business model for the bank. It is terrible math for you. Over the full 30 years of that $400,000 loan, you will pay roughly $510,000 just in interest. You read that correctly. You will pay more in interest than the original loan amount. That is $500,000 of pure unrecoverable cost. But interest is just the opening act. We need to talk about property taxes. Property taxes are literal rent you pay to the government forever. If you buy a $500,000 house in a state like Texas or Illinois or New Jersey, you might easily pay $10,000 a year in property taxes. That is $833 a month of unrecoverable money. And unlike your mortgage payment, your property taxes will never be paid off. They will increase every single year as the assessed value of your home goes up. Over 30 years, you will easily pay $300,000 or more in property taxes. Then we have homeowners insurance. We are living in an era where weather events are becoming more extreme and insurance companies are panicking. Across the country, insurance premiums are exploding. It is very common to pay $200 to $300 a month for a standard policy right now. In states like Florida or California, it can be triple that amount. Insurance companies are businesses driven by risk models, and the risk models are flashing red. Major insurance carriers are simply leaving certain states. They are refusing to write new policies. The homeowners who remain are seeing their premiums double or triple in a single year. We are talking about people whose insurance costs jump from $1,500 a year to $6,000 a year overnight. That is a permanent increase to your monthly housing cost. It never goes down. And if you have a mortgage, you are legally required to carry insurance. You cannot opt out. You are completely at the mercy of whatever rate the insurance company decides to charge you. Renters do not have this problem. Renters insurance costs $15 a month. If the property insurance on the building skyrockets, it is the problem of the landlord. Yes, the landlord might try to pass that cost on through higher rent, but rental markets are bound by what the local incomes can actually support. A landlord cannot just double your rent because their insurance went up. If they try, you simply move to a cheaper building. The renter has leverage. The homeowner is a captive audience. And then we arrive at the most unpredictable wealth destroyer of all: maintenance and repairs. The general rule of thumb is that you should expect to spend 1% to 2% of the value of your home every year on maintenance. On our $500,000 house, that is $5,000 to $10,000 a year. When you rent and the air conditioning stops working in July, you send a text message to your landlord. They send a guy and it gets fixed, and your bank account does not change. When you own the house and the air conditioning dies, you are suddenly writing a check for $8,000. When the roof needs to be replaced after 20 years, you are writing a check for $20,000. When the water heater floods the basement, you are paying the deductible and dealing with the contractors. All of these maintenance costs are unrecoverable. They do not increase the value of your home. A new roof does not make your house worth $20,000 more. It just brings it back to the baseline condition required to sell it. If you add up the mortgage interest, the property taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance, the unrecoverable costs on a $500,000 house can easily exceed $3,500 every single month. That is $3,500 of money you are throwing away. So when your parents tell you that paying $2,500 in rent is throwing money away, they are technically right. But they are completely ignoring the fact that buying the exact same house would mean throwing away $3,500 a month in unrecoverable homeownership costs. Rent is the absolute maximum you will pay for housing in a given month. A mortgage is the absolute minimum you will pay for housing in a given month. That is a fundamental difference that destroys the budgets of first-time buyers. So why does everyone still believe that buying is always better? Because the math used to be completely different. When your parents bought a house in 1995, the median home price was about $130,000. The median household income was about $34,000. A house cost roughly 4 times what a typical family made in a year. The math worked. You could comfortably afford the mortgage, the taxes, and the maintenance on a single income. And more importantly, houses were appreciating at a steady, predictable rate. Today, the median home price is over $415,000, and the median income is roughly $83,000. A house now costs over 5 times the median income. But it is actually much worse than that in desirable cities where the jobs are. In places like Seattle or Austin or Boston, a house can easily cost 8 to 10 times the median income. The fundamental relationship between wages and housing costs has completely broken down, And because the purchase prices are so massive, the unrecoverable costs tied to those prices are massive as well. The system relies on you not doing the math. It relies on you blindly following advice that expired 20 years ago. The entire real estate industry, the mortgage brokers, the realtors, the title companies, they all make money when you buy a house. None of them make money when you renew your lease and buy an index fund. They have a massive financial incentive to keep the narrative alive. We need to talk about the psychological warfare of being a renter. It starts in your late 20s. You go to a dinner party. Someone announces they just closed on a house. Everyone claps. Everyone raises a glass. They are treated like they just won an Olympic medal. They are viewed as responsible and successful and stable. Then someone asks you what your living situation is. You say you are still renting your apartment. The energy in the room shifts. People give you that sympathetic head tilt. They ask if you have started looking yet. They ask if you are checking online listings. They offer to introduce you to their real estate agent. It is incredibly condescending. You are made to feel like a transient teenager who cannot commit to the real world. This social pressure is exactly why so many young people panic and buy a house they cannot afford. They are not buying shelter. They are buying social status. They are buying the right to not feel left behind by their peers. They want to be able to post the photo on social media with the keys in their hand standing in front of a freshly painted door. But social status does not pay the property taxes. Social status does not fix the broken sewer line. Buying a house to impress your friends or to silence your parents is one of the most destructive financial decisions you can possibly make. You are signing a 30-year contract that will dictate every aspect of your financial life just to get a few congratulations in a comment section. You have to disconnect your ego from your living arrangement. You have to understand that the person at the dinner party bragging about their new house is probably waking up at 3 in the morning in a cold sweat wondering how they are going to pay the credit card bill for the new furniture they bought to fill their massive empty living room. Here is the most important concept in this entire video. This is the concept that separates the wealthy from the middle class. It is called opportunity cost. It is called opportunity cost is what you lose when you choose one option over another. When you buy a house, the opportunity cost is massive, and it comes in two parts. The first part is the down payment. To buy that $500,000 house, you had to lock up $100,000 in cash. That is $100,000 that is now trapped inside drywall and concrete. It produces no income. It pays no dividends. It is completely illiquid. If you have an emergency, you cannot just break off a piece of your kitchen counter and use it to buy groceries. You would have to take out a home equity loan and pay the bank even more interest just to access your own money. The second part of the opportunity cost is the monthly difference in cash flow. Let us say renting a similar house in your neighborhood costs $2,500 a month. Buying that house costs $4,000 a month when you include the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance. That is a difference of $1,500 every single month. The home buyer is forced to sink that extra $1,500 into the house. The renter gets to keep it. Let us look at what actually happens when we track this over time. We are going to look at two people. We will call them house poor Henry and renter Rachel. They both have $100,000 in cash, and they both make the same salary. Henry decides he wants to build equity and live the American dream. He uses his $100,000 to put 20% down on a $500,000 house. His total monthly housing costs are $4,000. He feels great because he is a homeowner. Rachel decides to ignore the societal pressure. She chooses to rent a nearly identical house in the exact same neighborhood for $2,500 a month. She takes her $100,000 and she invests it in an S&P 500 index fund. Because her rent is $1,500 cheaper than the total housing cost of Henry, she takes that extra $1,500 every single month and she automatically invests it into that same index fund. Let us fast forward 10 years and look at the real math. Over 10 years, the house of Henry appreciates at a historical average of about 4% a year. His $500,000 house is now worth about $740,000. He has also paid down his mortgage balance from $400,000 to about $340,000. So Henry takes the value of his house, minus his mortgage, and he calculates his equity. He has $400,000 in equity. He feels like a financial genius. But let us look at Rachel. Rachel started with $100,000 in her investment account. She added $1,500 to it every single month. The stock market historically returns an average of about 10% a year. After 10 years, the investment account of Rachel has grown to over $550,000. But wait, it gets better. The money of Rachel is completely liquid. She can access it tomorrow if she wants to. She can sell shares with the click of a button and pay a very low long-term capital gains tax rate. If Henry wants to access his $400,000 in equity, he has to sell his house. And selling a house is incredibly expensive. He has to pay 6% in realtor commissions. He has to pay closing costs. He has to pay for repairs to get the house ready to sell. When Henry sells his $740,000 house, he will lose at least $50,000 just in transaction fees. The real wealth of Henry is much lower than he thinks. And remember, Henry spent 10 years dealing with broken pipes and leaky roofs and rising property taxes. Rachel spent 10 years calling her landlord whenever something broke. She never spent a single weekend fixing a toilet. She spent her weekends enjoying her life and watching her investment portfolio crush the real estate market. Let us push the timeline even further, because people always say that buying a house is a 30-year play. Let us fast forward 30 years. Henry finally pays off his mortgage. He owns the house free and clear. At 4% annual appreciation, his house is now worth about $1.6 million. Henry is a millionaire on paper. He is incredibly proud. But let us look at the investment account of Rachel after 30 years. She started with $100,000. She invested $1,500 a month for 30 years at a 10% average return. The investment account of Rachel is now worth over $5.1 million. $5.1 million in liquid, highly diversified index funds. Henry has $1.6 million trapped in a single illiquid asset in a single neighborhood subject to local tax hikes and weather events. Rachel has 3 times the wealth of Henry and absolute total freedom. She can live anywhere in the world. She can pull out $200,000 a year in dividends and never touch the principal. Henry still has to pay $20,000 a year in property taxes and insurance just to stay in his paid-off house. Rachel won the game. She absolutely destroyed Henry in wealth creation. And she did it by renting. The reason people do not understand this math is because home equity is phantom wealth. It is a number on a spreadsheet that you cannot easily use. People look at their online home value estimate and they feel rich. But you are not actually rich until you realize those gains. And realizing those gains means selling your shelter. It means you have to go buy another house in the exact same expensive market. If your house doubled in value, the house across the street also doubled in value. You are not actually getting ahead. You are just keeping pace with inflation. The stock market is completely different. It represents ownership in real productive companies that are generating profits and innovating and growing the economy. When you invest in an index fund, you are capturing the collective growth of human progress. When you buy a house, you are hoping that the land underneath your feet becomes more scarce and desirable over time. One is a productive asset. The other is a consumption item that occasionally acts as an inflation hedge. Let us look at the historical data because people love to argue about returns. Real estate is highly localized, but on a national level, housing prices have historically increased by about 4 to 5% per year. That barely keeps up with true inflation when you factor in the massive holding costs. The stock market, on the other hand, has historically returned an average of about 10% per year before inflation. That 6% gap might not sound like a lot, but over decades it creates an astronomical difference in wealth due to compound interest. Compound interest is the most powerful force in finance. It is what happens when your money makes money, and then that new money makes even more money. When you lock your cash in a house, it compounds very slowly. When you put it in the market, it compounds rapidly. And the best part is that you do not have to do anything. You do not have to screen tenants. You do not have to paint walls. You just buy the index fund and you go live your life. The companies in that index fund hire the smartest people in the world to work 80 hours a week to make you richer. You are leveraging the labor and innovation of millions of people to build your wealth while you sleep. The homeowner is leveraging their own physical labor to maintain a depreciating structure built on top of an appreciating piece of dirt. It is a completely different approach to building a financial future. There is another massive hidden cost to buying a house that nobody ever models in a spreadsheet. It is the cost of being trapped. We live in a dynamic, rapidly changing economy. The best opportunities for your career might not be in your current city. If you get an incredible job offer in another state and you own a house, you have a massive problem. You have to prepare the house for sale. You have to find a buyer. You have to pay tens of thousands of dollars in transaction fees. The friction of moving is so high that most homeowners simply stay put. They turn down the job offer. They pass up the opportunity to increase their income by 40% because they are chained to their mortgage. Renters have ultimate optionality. When your lease is up, you can move across the country. You can take the better job. You can relocate to a cheaper city and lower your living expenses instantly. In a modern economy, mobility is one of the greatest competitive advantages you can possibly have. Renting gives you absolute mobility. Buying a house anchors you to a specific geographical radius. You have probably seen the real estate gurus on the internet telling you that you can hack the system. They tell you to buy a multifamily property and let the tenants pay your mortgage. They make it sound like a passive income dream. Just collect the checks and live for free. This is another massive illusion. Being a landlord is not passive income. It is a highly active, incredibly stressful second job. It means you are responsible for the living conditions of other humans. When their heat breaks on a holiday, it is your problem. When they lose their job and stop paying rent, it is your problem. When they flush something they should not flush and destroy the plumbing, it is your problem. And you still have all the unrecoverable costs of ownership, multiplied by the wear and tear of tenants who do not care about the property as much as you do. The math on rental properties is getting harder and harder to justify at current interest rates and current purchase prices. Do not let someone selling an online course convince you that managing tenants is a magical loophole to wealth. Now, I am not saying that buying a house is always a terrible idea for everyone in every situation. If you have a massive family and you want complete control over your space and you plan to live in the exact same spot for 20 years and you can comfortably afford the payment without stressing your budget, then buying a house is fine. It is a lifestyle choice, and that is exactly how you need to view it. Buying a house is a lifestyle choice. It is a luxury consumption decision. It is not the ultimate wealth-building hack that your parents told you it was. It is a very expensive way to secure housing stability. But if you are going to rent forever, there is one massive catch. There is one non-negotiable rule that you must follow if you want this mathematical superpower to work. The reason homeownership works for the average person is because it is a forced savings account. The bank threatens to take your house away if you do not make the mortgage payment. So people find a way to make the payment. It forces them to build equity over time. Renters do not have that forced mechanism. If you rent a cheaper place and you take that extra $1,500 a month and you spend it on expensive dinners and car payments and designer clothes, you will end up completely broke. You will arrive at age 65 with zero home equity and zero investment portfolio. That is the disaster scenario. If you choose the path of renting, you have to provide your own discipline. You have to take the money you saved on a down payment and put it in the market. You have to take the difference between rent and a mortgage and invest it every single month without fail. You have to automate your investments so that the money leaves your checking account before you ever have the chance to spend it. You have to treat your investment contribution like a mortgage payment that you owe to your future self. If you do that, if you combine the low transaction costs of renting with the compounding power of the stock market, you will achieve a level of financial freedom that most homeowners cannot even comprehend. So the next time someone tells you that renting is throwing money away, just smile and nod. You do not need to argue with them. You do not need to justify your living situation to anyone. You know the real math. You know that while they are spending their weekends at the hardware store, paying for a new water heater, you are buying shares of the most profitable companies on earth. You are building liquid, sustainable, stress-free wealth. That is not throwing money away. That is winning. If this breakdown changed how you view the housing market, drop a like and leave a comment below. I want to hear your renting versus buying stories. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.